Good noon class. I'm Dr. Munaza. Today we are going to start with adrenal gland, which is one of the most important gland of the body. This gland has a very important role, and it's a very vital organ for maintaining the biochemical changes inside your blood and maintaining your strength, integrity, and your all the everyday life processes, your thinking, your body vigor, everything. So, and it's very interesting information in this lecture. So please be focused on the slides. Adrenal glands are, these are tiny structures, triangular in shape. They are lying on the superior pole of the kidney. And you can see in this picture that this is right kidney, this is right kidney, and this is left kidney. This is the main artery, which is giving the right renal artery and left renal artery. Left renal artery is longer than the right, and this is inferior vena cava. So this is the kidney structure. This is superior, middle, and inferior pole. This is the ureteric structure. These are the two glands lying. Right is triangular in shape, and its base is broader than the top. It has an apex, and this is the base. Central part is medulla. Here the left one is, this is not triangular, but it has a bit slightly different structure as compared to the right side. So adrenal glands, this is the gross section. If you cut it transversely, you will see under the microscope, it has three layers. The upper one is the capsule. This is the capsule, which is, we are considering this is the right adrenal gland. So upper one, the serous membrane is the capsule of the gland. This is the capsule. It has three parts. Uh, to memorize it, I will say that as we considered the GFR in the kidney, so there are also three parts, and you will remember them as GFR. G stands for glomerulosa, F stands for fasciculata, and R stands for reticularis. So GFR is also the important measuring unit for the kidney functions. So we are memorizing their layers name according to glomerulosa, fasciculata, and reticularis. So you will see 80% of the gland is occupied by the glomerulosa, and the fasciculata and reticularis, these two layers are equal in length and thickness, but their functions and secretion of the hormone is different. So zona glomerulosa, this is responsible for the release of aldosterone. Fasciculata is responsible for the release of cortisol, and reticularis is responsible for the release of androgens. Androgens means this is the uh, testosterone and estrogen. These are the two androgenic hormones, and they play an important role on the reproductive system. On the cut section, you can see their thickness, their this layer, glomerulosa is similar to the in thickness to the reticularis, but this fasciculata layer is thicker. In between the underlying the area, in the middle of this part, overall structure, this is the chromatin cells. These cells, they are making the adrenal medulla, and this is under the control of neurogenic control, neurons and nerves, and two hormones, epinephrine and norepinephrine, are being secreted, being synthesized and released by this area. So this is also, these two hormones are also called the fight and flight hormones. So this was about the structure. So I told you that adrenal glands, they are triangular in shape and they measure about 3 inches in length and half inch in the height. They are separated with one another on each kidney, and the kidneys are lying on the lumbar area, posterior peritoneal wall, and they are made up of inner layer called the adrenal medulla and outer layer cortex. Just I told you in the previous slide. So what is the role of adrenal gland in the body? First of all, we will talk about adrenal medulla. This is made up of chromatin cells, and which are the main source of catecholamine hormones. So these hormones are called catecholamine hormones. These are epinephrine and norepinephrine. The epinephrine is called adrenaline and norepinephrine is called noradrenaline. So these two hormones are secreted there and they are called fight and flight hormones. Whenever you are excited, you are happy, you are feared, you are petrified by something, these hormones are the number one hormones which are released by these glands. And they are under the control of our sympathetic nervous system, and these sympathetic neuron endings, they are stimulated and they are the main source of secretion of the hormones. Um, I told you whenever you are in stress, these are also called the emergency hormones. Adrenaline, you might have heard that when somebody is having heart attack or cardiac arrest, adrenaline is given to the directly by intracardiac injection is given. So this hormone has the advantage. This is a great property of this hormone that this is the emergency hormone and this is directly injected into the heart and your heart start beating. If this by God forbid it stops working. So this is the emergency hormone, fight and flight hormone. This is also called fight and flight hormone. There is no route of release for these two hormones because they are directly released by the cholinergic endings, which are synaptic clefts in the muscles, and they are directly released into the blood. They do not need a route of transmission via from the pituitary or pituitary or hypothalamus. They are directly released into the blood, so they have their own control. Epinephrine hormone is also referred as the adrenaline, and this is acting as a neurotransmitter. Neurotransmitter means this is under the control of nerves, and this is derived from, this is made up of amino acid tyrosine. And when this hormone is present in the blood, it prepares the body for the action in emergency situation. The hormone increases the supply of oxygen and glucose to the brain and muscles. So the main action of adrenaline or epinephrine hormone is to supply oxygen and glucose to the brain and muscles. And when this is released in the blood in case of emergency, so it increases the heart rate, because you have seen that in whenever you are feared or you are happy, your heart rate becomes faster, and it increases the cardiac output. Stroke volume is increased. So when stroke volume is increased, there is sympathetic stimulation of the nerve endings. So it causes, because sympathetic system is supplying every part of the body, so it dilates the pupil and it constricts the arterioles in the skin. You might have seen whenever you are feared of something or something scary, you see something scary, you become paler. So the main reason of being paler at that time is because there is constriction of the arterioles under the effect of adrenaline. Its main action, one of its main action is to break down the lipids in the blood cells. It means it has a lipolysis action. And it does not have a psychoactive effect and it does not alter the brain functions. So your pain is totally under your control and intact, and it does not have such type of effect on the brain as compared to the other organs like constriction of the arterioles of the body, except brain. Then it is causing the breaking down of lipids in the fat cells, and it is increasing the supply of oxygen and glucose to the brain and muscles. Second one is norepinephrine. We are talking about the adrenal medulla hormone. Norepinephrine is also called as noradrenaline, and it acts as this is also a neurotransmitter, and this is also a stress hormone. A stress hormone very similar to epinephrine, except there is one difference in between them, that it affects a part of the brain. Norepinephrine, it affects a part of the brain, while epinephrine is not acting on the brain, where attention and responding actions are controlled. Our attention, our focusing action, our response action is controlled under the control of norepinephrine, while epinephrine does not have action on the brain. So they have a psychoactive effects, while adrenaline, it does not have psychoactive effects. Adrenal cortex, talking about the adrenal cortex, in the beginning I told you there's three layers. An outer layer is called producing mineralocorticoid. Mineralocorticoid means this is producing aldosterone. Aldosterone is a hormone which is have a great impact on the control of blood vessels, on our blood pressure. So whenever there are changes in the body, in the fluid level, or in the electrolyte imbalance, this is the hormone. Adrenaline is the hormone which is secreted or inhibited by a positive and negative feedback effect. This is released, triggered by high extracellular potassium. So whenever there is high extracellular potassium and low sodium and low fluid level, so what will happen, that to maintain the balance between the potassium, sodium and fluid level, this hormone is released. This is triggered, its release is triggered by the effect of low sodium, because sodium is very important controlling the blood pressure. So aldosterone has a direct effect on the blood pressure by affecting on the kidneys, because kidneys are playing a vital role in maintaining the blood pressure. So what does it do? It increases the absorption of sodium by the tubules, renal tubules, and increases the excretion of potassium, because excess potassium is not good for our health. So to maintain the balance, because potassium should be lower than the sodium. So in order to maintain this homeostasis, sodium is being absorbed by the kidneys and potassium is excreted by the kidneys, and it maintains the fluid level. Earlier, this was about the zona glomerulosa. Glomerulosa is basically mineralocorticoid, and mineralocorticoid action is held upon by uh, aldosterone. Second layer is glomerulosa, fasciculata. Second layer is fasciculata, and this layer is making 80% of the cortex, and it is making the hormone cholesterol, main hormone corticosteroid. Main production is corticosteroid, and all corticosteroids are cholesterol in nature. The main hormone which is formed by the fasciculata is cortisol. Cortisol is a hormone which responds to stress and anxiety. So it increases, cortisol has many effects on the body. It increases blood pressure, it increases blood sugar level, it reduces the immune response. Because cortisol, when excess of steroids are given to some patient, we have seen that people taking excess of steroid level, this is also called the steroid hormone. So people taking excess of steroid, they lower their immunity, because they can get infection by any of the common pandemic or endemic viral diseases. So several synthetic forms of cortisol are used to treat a variety of different illnesses, such as cortisone acetate. This is one of the commercial product, cortisone acetate, which is being used for the treatment. The deepest layer, the third layer of the adrenal cortex is and reticularis. And this is the producing androgens. These include hormone like testosterone and testosterone are also primarily they are produced by the testes in males, but this is also produced in the because androgenic action, reticularis layer has androgenic action. So this is producing testosterone and estrogen. Estrogen is a feminine hormone and testosterone is a masculine hormone. So what are the malfunctioning? Now, as long as these hormones are producing ample amount of hormones which are needed by our body or required by the body, they are functioning okay and they are good. But sometimes whenever there is hyperfunctioning or hypofunctioning of these hormones, so what happens? There are certain abnormalities which are produced in the body. So in case of hyperfunctioning, what happens in case of hyperfunctioning as cortex 80% of the part of the adrenal cortex is uh, occupied by the fasciculatum. So the if there this gland is hyperfunctioning, so what happens, it produces Cushing syndrome. Cushing syndrome is the excess production of cortisol by the adrenal gland. Too much cortisol is produced and symptoms vary, but most people have upper body opacity, round face, increased fat around the neck, and thinning arms and legs. I'll let you know why does it happen. Weakening of the bones and easy bruising of the skin is also common. Cushing syndrome is caused by either an abnormality in the adrenal cortex, such as the primary cause of adrenal Cushing syndrome is the tumor, which is lying, or this is the primary cause, tumor in the gland, adrenal gland, or secondary cause lying in the pituitary gland, which is producing too much ACTH. Because this cortisol control is under the effect of ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, and this hormone is released by the anterior pituitary gland. I told you in the beginning when we were discussing the pituitary gland that pituitary gland is releasing 6 hormones. Anterior pituitary part is releasing 6 hormones. One of them is ACTH, and ACTH is linked with the um, cortisol. And ACTH is the higher center for ACTH controlling is hypothalamus, which is releasing the corticotropin releasing hormone. CRH is the controlling uh, gland for controlling hormone for ACTH, and ACTH is controlling the cortisol secretion. So this is how the cortisol is being controlled by the body. You can see that this is the typical picture of Cushing syndrome. There is upper body obesity, and this obesity is due to the deposition of fat cells. You can see in the area of neck, abdomen, lower part of the abdomen, in the breast, and around the neck, in the face. The Cushinite face, this the moon face. The patient developing Cushing syndrome, they develop moon face. There is swelling of the face, round moon-like face. Uh, when it deposited in the neck, this is called buffalo neck because the buffalo-like hump at the back of the neck due to the lipogenic action, deposition of fat cells. Then there is deposition of fat cells, lower abdomen, and there is disproportion you can see in the body between the extremities. Extremities becomes thin, and the central part of the body is obese. And so this is the central obesity and peripheral thinning area. So there is high blood pressure, high blood sugar level because there is gluconeogenesis, but glucose is not taken up by the cells, so it causes hyperglycemia. There is vertigo, high blood pressure. High blood pressure because of increased effect of cortisol on the blood vessels, blurry vision, acne, female balding, water retention, it causes blood pressure and it causes the retention of water inside. Kidneys are not functioning properly, so it causes water retention. Menstrual irregularities, there is thinning of the skin because the collagen fibers, they are being destroyed. So the skin become shiny, flat and thin. There are purple striae on the skin, Poor wound healing because this cortisol is steroid in action, and these steroids, they are not good for healing wound. So as in diabetic patients, they have a poor response for the healing. So there is poor wound healing. Hirsutism means excessive growth of hair on various parts of the body. Then patient become is severely depressed. Obviously, when your biochemistry is changing, your whole attire is changing, you become depressed. There is cognitive difficulties because of the action of psychoactive actions of these hormones, emotional instability, sleep disorders, and the fatigue. This is another picture. You can see that there are red cheeks. This is called plethora. Fat is deposited buffalo hump. This is buffalo hump. Buffalo hump, easy bruisability because the liver functions are not working properly. So there is bleeding tendency in the body. Abdominal stria because of the elasticity, loss of elasticity. Collagen fibers, they are not working, forming properly, and elastic fibers are being lost. Then there is pendulous abdomen and thin arms. Thinning of the arm is because the atrophy of the muscles is being started under the effect of cortisol. Muscles become atrophied, and there is resorption of the bone, osteoporosis, and so very patient is very much vulnerable for the fractures. So fractures occur very easily. This is the diagnosis, how you go for the diagnosis to make the diagnosis, whether this is Cushing syndrome or something else. So the peak time, the timing of the release of this hormone is very important because the peak level of this hormone is attained in the body early morning, 8 o'clock. 8 a.m. is the peak time for the release of cortisol. So this is why people say that whenever you want to memorize something or read something, or because this time period, morning time, is very good for memorizing anything because cortisol is at its peak level, and the time is 8 a.m. So before sampling the patient for testing the cortisol level, the patient should have a good sleep, 8 hours sleep. He should not be having have taken any type of medicine, any type of anti-allergy, any type of medicine 8 hours before the test. He should have a good sleep. He should have normal diet. He should have normal amount of water, and he should have a perfect sleep for 8 hours so that the true value of the cortisol level at 8 a.m. can be estimated. Then first of all, we will take the blood sample and we will check the ACTH level because ACTH controlling the cortisol level. And I told you when if cortisol is high, ACTH will be low, and if ACTH is high, cortisol will be low. So ACTH level is checked, adrenocorticotropic hormone, to find out whether this is primary cause or secondary cause. So if the ACTH level is borderline means it's upper value, it's near the upper value. So this is, we will do corticotropin releasing hormone stimulation test because if the ACTH level is high, and this ACTH, we know this is controlled by the corticotropin releasing hormone, which is released secreted by the hypothalamus. So we will do this stimulation test. If this is okay, so there must be a error in the corticotropin releasing hormone. So this is how we diagnose. But this, if this is low, if ACTH is low, it means that ACTH is independent. This is adrenal Cushing. It means cortisol is being produced by the adrenal gland in excessive amount. So that when it becomes excessive, the ACTH level will become low. But if on the other hand, you can see if ACTH is high, it means that ACTH is dependent. ACTH is dependent means this is dependent upon the pituitary gland. But if its level is low, it means this is independent, and its value is dependent upon the adrenal gland. Adrenal is making more cortisol. I mean, if this is making more cortisol, so level will become low. But if this ACTH is high, it means that the defect is lying in the pituitary gland. And this is dependent on the pituitary gland, not on the adrenal gland. So if its level is low, then we will do the CAT scanning for the or MRI for on the abdomen or the renal area to see any tumor, primary tumor, adenoma, or cancer, or there is any hyperplasia, bilateral hyperplasia. This finding is noted out by CT scan. CT scan is the basic test to find out the any sort of tumor growth or hyperplasia on the adrenal gland. On the other hand, if the level of the adrenal ACTH is high, it means the total defect is in the pituitary gland, not in the adrenal gland. So we will do the inferior petrosal sinus sampling. Inferior petrosal sinus sampling, this is the petrosal bone is below your eyes and adjacent to the nasal bridge, and we go through the canthus of the eye to the posterior part to take the sample of the blood by the arteries supplying the pituitary gland. And MRI of the brain is also done. So MRI will find out if there is any pituitary tumor, Cushing disease, or this is ectopic. Ectopic means region of the ACTH other than these areas. Ectopic means the other than pituitary, hypothalamus, adrenal, there is another source of releasing ACTH hormones. So this source is most commonly lies in the lungs, and lungs are the if the lungs are some types of tumors in the lungs, they also produce ACTH hormones. So this is the way by which we can diagnose. This is the stimulation test, and for to see the adrenal insufficiency or hyperfunctioning of the adrenal gland, this is the way how we will proceed towards the diagnosis. So this is very important. This is I will tell you in detail the corticotropin releasing hormone stimulation test when we will talk about the clinical chemistry, inshallah, after Eid. So this is for examination point of view. In this chart is important. So you can see in this there is circadian regulation. Circadian regulation means that hypothalamus, I told you, is the master gland. And hypothalamus is very easily affected when the person is under stress, when there is physical stress, emotional stress, when you are hypoglycemic, like nowadays as the fasting period is going on. So in hypoglycemia, your hypothalamus uh, respond very well in cases of cold exposure, or whenever there is pain, severe pain. Your hypothalamus is the master gland which is controlling all the impulses of the hormone releasing hormones from the hypothalamus to the pituitary gland. So these releasing hormone, you can see the corticotropin releasing hormone. This is released by the hypothalamus and acting on the anterior pituitary, and here the ACTH is under the control of this hormone. So main hormone is CRH, corticotropin releasing hormone. This is acting on ACTH, anterior corticotropin hormone, and this is released. This is the positive feedback. This is the positive feedback, and this is acting on the adrenal gland, adrenal cortex, not on the medulla. Medulla, I told you, this is under the neurogenic control. Cortex is under the control of higher centers. So cortisol will be released, and this cortisol, if there is excess of cortisol, so it will send a negative feedback to the hypothalamus. And if there is low cortisol, it will send a positive feedback. Positive means to require for the more hormone release. Negative means to tell him stop secreting hormone. So this is, I think this picture is good enough to make you understand what is positive, what is negative feedback, and how the cortisol is being secreted by the adrenal gland. So this is the life cycle. This is the cycle by which the cortisol is under the control. CRH, main hormone, the CRH, ACTH, cortisol. This is the primary lesion. If the lesion is lying in the adrenal cortex, this is the primary cause. If the lesion is lying in the pituitary, this is the secondary cause. This is the tertiary cause. So, and ectopic, there is another source of release of ACTH. This is ectopic, which is mostly lying in the lungs. So, so in case of adrenal gland Cushing disease, you can see there is bilateral nodular cortical hyperplasia if the cause is primary. And this lead to the, and this hyperplasia is secondary to the elevated level of ACTH. It means that ACTH dependent Cushing syndrome. And there is high level of ACTH. When there is high level of ACTH, it will stimulate adrenal gland to become bigger in size and by functioning, more functioning. You have seen that in the people doing the gym, they increase their muscle mass because they are using more, they are using their muscles more in the gym, so their muscle size increases. So whenever adrenal gland has to work more, so its size will increase. There is adrenal gland hyperplasia. It could be unilateral or bilateral, but mostly this is bilateral. So, and this is nodular, nodules are formed, and this is nodular hyperplasia. In case of adrenal cortical adenoma, adenoma is a single uh, setting of the gland. This is a solitary, well circumscribed nodule, and this is mostly encapsulated. Size is about 2.5 centimeter to 50 grams, and this could be functional or could be non-functional. If this is not functional, nothing to worry about. This is inoculated by laparoscopy, and your function become okay. And mostly it is if this is adjacent to the cortex, so they become atrophied. Then cut surface shows the yellowish brown appearance, and there is no area of hemorrhage or necrosis inside them. This is the histological picture. Then you can see the hyperplasia. Pink color fibers are hyperplastic area, and these areas, these are the lipofuscin deposit. These are the lipofuscin deposit, and there is also the nodules all around. There is hyperactivity of the nodular element. This is the histological section. So, what are the changes which are changes in what are the changes in the adrenal gland in case of Cushing syndrome? There would be cortical atrophy. Atrophy means that this is shrunken in size. If when there is excessive amount, the most common cause of hypercortisolism is exogenous exogenous steroid. When person is when the people are taking more steroid, they are taking like asthmatic patient, they are taking steroid tablet. Then in renal transplant, they are taking steroid tablets. Some people are taking puffs for asthma. When the weather changes, asthmatic attacks, they become more prominent. So the people who are on steroid tablets or cough inhaler, they have the source of exogenous. Exogenous means outside the body. Steroid is introduced in their body from the outside, not being produced inside the body. So what happens when there is excessive amount of glucocorticoid inside the body? What will they do? They will suppress the endogenous ACTH. When there is high level of steroid in the bloodstream, I told you there is negative feedback mechanism. So they will stop the ACTH release from the pituitary gland. So what will happen? They will result in bilateral cortical atrophy because exogenous glucocorticoid they are in the bloodstream. Your ACTH stimulus is being stopped by this glucocorticoid. The stimulus is not being released. So what will happen? Adrenal gland will become atrophied. They will shrink in size because their stimulus is being stopped by the exogenous source. So these steroids, they were not produced from the inside. They were introduced into your body from external source. You are taking by mouth or taking injections or taking by nose. So what will happen? Their level rises in the blood. So when their level rises, they will stop pituitary gland, not produce, do not produce ACTH. When ACTH is not produced, what will happen? The normal functioning of the adrenal gland will diminish. It will become shrunken in size. This causes bilateral cortical atrophy. And what happens here exactly is that since you are administering cortisol, the pituitary is being inhibited, I told you, and being stopped. I have told you this is negative feedback. The zona glomerulosa is of the normal thickness because the function is independent of ACTH, and the aldosterone is not regulated by ACTH. I told you that cortex is producing three hormones: aldosterone, cortisol, and androgens. So aldosterone is not under the control of ACTH. This is the cortisol hormone which is under the control of ACTH. So diffuse and nodular hyperplasia could be there, is found in 60% to 70% of the cases. And endogenous, I told you, exogenous Cushing syndrome by the administration of exogenous glucocorticoid in the body. And second is endogenous Cushing syndrome by the excessive production of cortisol from the gland. These are the two causes, primary causes. And number two is secondary hyperplasia is found in patients with ACTH dependent Cushing syndrome due to Cushing disease or ectopic production of ACTH. So primary causes are lying in the adrenal gland, secondary causes lying in the pituitary, hypothalamus, or ectopic. Ectopic most common is lungs. Histologically, there are certain changes, excess cortisol for any reason. So, pituitary gland changes are croup-haline change, basophilic cytoplasm of the ACTH. I showed you the diagram, producing cell changes from granular to homogeneous due to the accumulation of filaments. So, adrenal gland changes are cortisol causes low level of ACTH when excess cortisol, negative feedback, low ACTH, which causes atrophy of the fasciculator and reticularis, not glomerulosa, in residual or opposite adrenal gland. The gland which is functioning and it has sufficient function to do, so they are under the effect of this gland. So how do we make the diagnosis? The best diagnosis and the best test which is performed to know the level of cortisol is 24-hour urine specimen. 24-hour urine specimen, it contains various end products because this hormone has certain enzymes in the production of cortisol. I will show you the logarithm of the hormones and their picture just now after a few slides. That this is very important slide, and wherever the hormone is stopped, so the every hormone, this hormone has a pre-hormone level, and their byproducts, their level rises in the urine. So the only diagnostic test to know the level of cortisol is 24-hour urine specimen, and the 24-hour urine free cortisol level. And this is number one test, 24-hour urine cortisol level. So the method of taking 24-hour urine is, suppose we are taking from 8 to 8. So you will take a jar from the lab, sterilized jar from the lab, and starting from the 8 a.m. If you are starting accumulating, if you have started accumulating your urine from 8 a.m. So what will you do? The first urine will be discarded. Not you will not pass it in the jar, because that urine would be the accumulation of your previous hours. So the first urine will be discarded. Suppose we are collecting the urine from 8 a.m. till next 8 a.m. 24-hour urine. So I am telling you, this is very important step, that the first part of the urine will be discarded. It will not be collected in the jar. So now the second urine, which you have started the time from 8 a.m., that second part will be collected in the jar till next 8 a.m. The last urine in 8 a.m. will till 8 a.m. you will pass it in the jar, and in this way you will collect the 24-hour urine specimen. This collection of specimen of urine is very important, and if this is not done properly, your result will not be correct. So number two is late night between 8 p.m. and midnight serum or salivary cortisol level. uh, late night between 11 p.m. and midnight. This is the time from 11 p.m. to midnight. This is the time where the cortisol level is at its peak. And the salivary cortisol level and the overnight 1 milligram dexamethasone suppression test are excellent screening tests for Cushing syndrome. So if you are going to diagnose the Cushing syndrome, you will perform the salivary cortisol level, or you will give 1 milligram dexamethasone to the patient. Dexamethasone is a preparation, commercial preparation of cortisol. You will give it to him and you will see whether this suppresses the cortisol level or it enhances the cortisol level. If this cortisol, dexamethasone, it suppresses the ACTH level, it means your pituitary is working okay. If it does not suppresses, it means the pituitary is not functioning properly. So this suppression test is used to diagnose the excess or less amount of urine, primary or secondary cause, to differentiate between the primary and secondary cause. Got my point? Suppression and stimulation tests afford a means of assessing the state of hypothalamic pituitary. HPA is hypothalamic pituitary axis feedback system. For example, a test dose of ACTH can be given to assess the response of adrenal cortex to stimulation. For example, I told you 1 milligram dexamethasone is given at night. So you will see that whether the ACTH is increased or decreased, or cortisol is increased or decreased. So this is the stimulation and suppression test, and in this way you will get to know the cause of primary secondary cause of Cushing syndrome. And similarly, administration of dexamethasone, this is a synthetic glucocorticoid, and it provides a means of measuring negative feedback suppression of ACTH. Adrenal tumors and ectopic ACTH producing tumors are usually unresponsive because the adrenal gland, which is already having a tumor, so tumor is already producing excessive amount of cortisol. So this small amount of cortisol, glucocorticoid, is not going to act on the massive amount of um, cortisol which is being produced by the tumor. Got my point? The tumor is already making excess amount of cortisol. So this tiny amount is not going to act on the on that tumor. So they are doing their function. They are producing more. So it will act on the this will diagnose the case of secondary hyperpituitarism. Ectopic ACTH, similarly, ectopic ACTH tumors, they are producing their ACTH on their own. They do not, they are unresponsive to ACTH suppression by the dexamethasone. So the main function of dexamethasone is to diagnose the secondary cause, pituitary cause. So this was all about the Cushing syndrome. Number 2 is Addison disease. Addison disease, I told you that this occurs when the adrenal cortex, it does not produce enough cortisol, aldosterone. This is mainly enough cortisol. When there is excessive production of cortisol, it causes Cushing syndrome. When there is decreased amount of cortisol, it causes Addison's disease. So Addison disease is the when there is underproduction of cortisol. So the symptoms include, they are all opposite to the Cushing syndrome. There is weight loss, muscle weakness, fatigue, low blood pressure, and sometimes darkening of the skin. This darkening of the skin is due to the melanocyte stimulating hormone, which is under the control of cortisol, and this is also released from the anti-pituitary hormone. Because their area and ACTH area, they are neighbors to each other. So this hormone is being affected and patient becomes melanocyte stimulating hormone activity. There is hyperpigmentation, so there is dark coloration. This could be caused again by adrenal cortex abnormalities or inadequate secretion of ACTH. You can do all revert these all changes which were produced by the hypersecretion. So this is the hyposecretion of the cortisol. So if symptoms worsen suddenly due to stressful events, so it causes Addisonian crisis, and this Addisonian crisis is fatal. You can see this is the normal picture, normal, and this is the Addison's picture. You can see their size, difference in their size, and Okay. This is a hypoaldosteronism. There is low sodium in hypoaldosteronism. There is low sodium, high potassium, and dehydration because of the low extracellular volume and tidal volume is low. Postural hypotension. When sodium is low, there is postural hypotension, weight loss, high plasma, renin activity, and low cortisol levels. There is hypoglycemia. While in Cushing syndrome, you saw that there was hyperglycemia and hypoglycemia and anemia, high ACTH level, melanocyte stimulating hormone is high, there is more pigmentation on the skin, and low sex hormones are produced, loss of body and pubic hair, because androgens, they are controlling our production of hair, they are playing major role in your reproductive system. So loss of body and pubic hair, loss of libido. Libido means no desire of sex. Amenorrhea, no menses, and muscle wasting and thin limbs. This is a typical picture of Addison disease. You can see there is weight loss, hyperpigmentation, hypotension, thinning of the axillary and pubic hair. Vitiligo. Vitiligo is the discoloration, white discoloration of the skin in which there are white patches over the skin. The symptoms are fatigue, lassitude, malaise, weakness, anorexia, postural hypotension, syncope, gastrointestinal symptoms, which include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, constipation, myalgic pain, arthralgias, and loss of libido and amenorrhea. These are all the signs and symptoms. This is another picture to make you understand that what is the Addison's disease. If you put this picture in your mind, you can see the bronze coloration, pigmentation of the skin, changes in the distribution of body hair. You can see the lady has mustaches over here. Then GI disturbances, there is weakness, postural hypotension, hypoglycemia. This is an old lady, weight loss, and adrenal crisis is when there is profound fatigue, dehydration, vascular collapse, renal shutdown, increase sodium and decrease sodium and increase potassium. So this is the fatal condition. This picture will show the differentiation between the Cushing and Addison disease. You can see all the systems which are hyperactive over here, they are hypoactive over here. So this is the main differences regarding all the systems I told you. You can see personality changes, there is changes in the fatigue, in their muscular mass, in the coloration of the skin, in the scalp hair, distribution of hair, then stria, muscle weakness, all they are opposite to each other. So the patient which are presenting with the signs and symptoms of adrenal insufficiency, the metabolic, their measurement is done. I told you 8 a.m. is the peak level of cortisol secretion. So if there is adrenal insufficiency, if there is no adrenal, the results are okay, you will think some other cause. But if there is low cortisol level, normal to high potassium level, so this is one of the biochemical changes, that there is increased potassium and low sodium. This is very typical picture of the Addison's disease. And pigmentation. These three signs are very important. If you get a scenario that there is increased potassium, low sodium, and hyperpigmentation, you will definitely tick on the Addison's disease. This is the scenario level. So you will perform the post-syncopian stimulation test. This is a test. This is analog, commercial analog of ACTH. So in this way, we measure the basal ACTH level before giving the intravenous ACTH. And this is given 250 microgram, and it measures the cortisol level again. And levels are taken every 30 minutes. You will check the 30 minutes, then 60 minutes, then 90 minutes. You will check the level of cortisol, and you will see if the cortisol is being produced or not, because we are introducing the commercially prepared ACTH. Because cortisol level is under the control of ACTH, so we are giving ACTH to see whether the adrenal gland respond it or not. If it does not respond it, so if the level remains normal, so it means we will think about some other cause. If the level is low cortisol level and high ACTH level, So it means there is primary adrenal insufficiency because we introduce ACTH from outside the body and the level is still low. It means there is primary adrenal insufficiency, and to identify the etiology, we will measure the hormone 21 hydroxylase antibody levels, or we will see the CT scan of the adrenal gland to see the anatomical defect. Number three is if the cortisol level is low and ACT is also low. There are three conditions. Number one, the level remains normal. Number two, cortisol is low, ACTH is high. It means primary lesion. Number three, another scene that there is low cortisol and low ACTH. No difference between the two. So what is the reason? Definitely there is a secondary cause, adrenal insufficiency. Secondary means the reason is lying away from the adrenal gland. So congenital adrenal hyperplasia, I will show you the detailed table after a few slides. Congenital adrenal hyperplasia is a familial disorder of adrenal steroid biosynthesis with autosomal recessive mode of inheritance. The defect is expressed at adrenal enzyme deficiency. Because I told you there are a number of hormones which are enzymes which are involved in the biosynthesis of these hormones. So 5 major enzymes deficiency are clinically important. This is 21 hydroxylase. This is the most important one. 11 beta hydroxylase, 17 alpha hydroxylase, 3 beta steroid hydrogenase, and 2022 desmolase deficiency. These are the 5 enzymes which are responsible for the biosynthesis of these hormones. So what is congenital adrenal hyperplasia? It happens both in male and female. So we will discuss one by one. The enzyme deficiency causes in congenital adrenal hyperplasia, the enzyme deficiency causes the reduction in end products. So what happens? There is accumulation of the hormone precursor. Precursor hormones are raised in amount because the main hormone is not being formed. So precursor hormone level is raised and increase ACTH production. So clinical picture, it reflects the effects of inadequate production of cortisol and aldosterone and the increased production of androgens and steroid metabolites. Androgen and steroid metabolite are more in amount as compared to cortisol and aldosterone. So their effect will be more because androgen is a sex hormone and steroid hormone increased production of aldosterone. So all the effects which are being produced by these two hormones, they will be enhanced, they'll be exaggerated. What happens in case of 21 hydroxylase deficiency? This is an enzyme. This is characterized by reduced production of cortisol and aldosterone and increased production of progesterone. So its precursor value is 17 hydroxyprogesterone and sextiroid. And the main effect, the main diagnostic point is in urine, the steroid metabolite will be elevated. So 17 ketosteroid and pregnenolone are the elevated hormones which are in the raised in the urine. Then 21 hydroxylase deficiency 3, decreased secretion of aldosterone result in salt when there is decreased aldosterone production. So salt is being lost from the body. There is hyponatremia. Salt is being extracted by the kidney. So salt is mainly sodium. So there will be hyponatremia in the body, and when sodium is low, potassium rises up in the body. So when plasma renin activity is elevated because plasma renin activity is under the control of sodium. So when sodium is low, renin activity will be increased. In partial enzyme deficiency, the aldosterone deficiency is not expressed. The patient remain normonatremic and normokalemic. So the excess androgen causes virilization. When there is excess production of androgenic hormones, they cause virilization of the girls and ambiguous genitalia and dark scrotum in the boys. These are the anatomical changes which are being produced by the androgens. And 11 beta hydroxylase deficiency, it accounts 5 to 10% of cases of these all deficiencies. These are occurring in case of congenital adrenal hyperplasia. So every sort of deficiency is producing a few specific points. So this 11 beta hydroxylase deficiency, this occur in 5 to 10% of the cases. In this case, gene is located on the long arm of the chromosome 8, and this is characterized by low plasma renin activity and elevation of serum alpha deoxycortisol and 11 deoxycorticosterone. Because of the strong mineralocorticoid activity of the deoxycorticosterone, the condition is characterized by salt retention, hypertension, hypokalemia, and cirrhosis. So when there is hypertension, it means sodium level is raised. When sodium is raised, potassium will fall. When sodium is raised, salt retention will be more, blood pressure will raise. Elevated plasma androgens may cause virilization of female fetus. So this is the main enzymatic pathway. This is very good picture to make you understand that the steroid hormones are cholesterol in nature. So they are converted into progesterone. So here is the hormone 21 hydroxylase which convert progesterone into aldosterone. When this area is blocked, this pathway is blocked, what will happen? Progesterone will rise in the body. So similarly, cholesterol is converted into 17 hydroxyprogesterone and 21 hydroxylase is converting this hormone into cortisol. And this is blocked. So what will happen? This end product will raise in the body. And when this is raised, androgenic action will be enhanced. You got my point? This is the very enzymatic pathway is very important and you can easily memorize which hormone is going to when 21 hydroxylase is stopped here. So what will happen? Cortisol and aldosterone will be low. Progesterone, 17 hydroxyprogesterone will be high and androgenic action will be high. This is the detailed picture. You can see that this pregnenolone, 3 alpha, these 5 hormones, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These are the 5 hormones which are important in their synthesis. So whenever one hormone is blocked, the precursor hormone will rise in the blood. You can see the picture. This picture is given in your book. This 21 hydroxylase is main is 21 hydroxylase. So when this is blocked, deficient or blocked, so progesterone will rise, this product will rise, and androgenic action will be raised. When this hormone is blocked, the dihydroepiandrosterone will be enhanced, elevated. If this is blocked, this product will be elevated. This is blocked, this will be elevated. But if this is blocked, this will be elevated, this will be elevated. So all the previous backward line will be elevated and the forward line will be low in number, in amount. Essential of diagnosis is the diagnosis is confirmed by taking ACTH level, measuring ACTH level, cortisol level, aldosterone, 17 hydroxyprogesterone, testosterone, and urinary ketosteroid. And they needs the alertness of the possibility in all the babies with diarrhea, vomiting, and hypoglycemia. If you find a baby that its genital system is not looking normal shape, there is vomiting, diarrhea, vomiting, hypoglycemia, increased blood pressure. So immediately the diagnosis which should come into your mind is congenital adrenal hyperplasia. And the babies have ambiguous genitalia at birth. Girls with have ambiguous genitalia, you cannot recognize is she a girl or a boy. So complete fusion of the labioscrotal folds and a phallic urethra, clitoromegaly, and partial fusion of the labioscrotal fold will be found in that girl. And in less severe cases, genitalia is normal at birth and precocious puberty. Uh, Pubic hair and clitoromegaly and excess facial and body hair appear in the childhood, and they are accompanied by tall stature because the androgenic action is more in the body as compared to cortisol and aldosterone. This is the picture how the female will look like. You can see this is the clitoris, enlarged clitoris. It is looking like a penile organ, and this is the fusion of the labioscrotal skin. So you cannot differentiate between a girl or boy. So this is the another picture which is showing the same thing. And boys with congenital adrenal hyperplasia, they are unrecognized at birth because their genitalia are normal. They are not diagnosed until later in life. Usually this is difficult to diagnose the male as compared to the female, and but there is salt wasting crisis resulting in dehydration, hypotension, hyponatremia, and hyperkalemia, and later in childhood with early pubic hair, phallic enlargement is accompanied by linear growth and advancement of the skeletal maturation. These boys are usually taller than their age. So high blood pressure, hypokalemia may occur in those with alpha beta hydroxylase deficiency and 17 alpha hydroxylase deficiency due to the accumulation of mineralocorticoid deoxycorticosterone. So lab findings are demonstration of inadequate production of cortisol, aldosterone, and the presence and accumulation of all the byproducts which I told you. 21 hydroxylase will be deficient and very high serum level of 11 hydroxy hydroxyprogesterone. This is a characteristic finding in these patients, in children with high urinary pregnantriol. So metabolic end products will be high in number. So lab findings are 11 beta hydroxylase deficiencies characterized by high serum 11 deoxycortisone level and 11 deoxycortisone concentrations with elevation of urinary metabolite. So all the urinary metabolite, they are accompanied, and this all tests are done in 24-hour urine sample, and end products will be high. Karyotyping is another test which will distinguish between the male and female, and prenatal diagnosis of adrenal hyperplasia is possible by biochemical and genetic testing, and imaging, ultrasound, and CT scan. Then these all are the imaging studies which you can find out the abnormality. Then treatment is lifelong. There is cosmetic surgery done. Then main goals are to maintain the growth, velocity, and their skeletal maturation, to normalize the electrolyte balance, hormonal level, and small amount of hormones are being used to retain their normal body structure. And like ACTH is given, mineralocorticoid are needed to sustain the normal electrolyte homeostasis. And mode of treatment is steroid replacement, supportive therapy when needed. Treatment is lifelong, plastic surgery for ambiguous genitalia. Genetic counseling and psychological support is very important. And in long-term therapy, you will give the steroid replacement, like hydrocortisone is given 10 to 15 milligram per square meter per day. This is divided in 3 daily doses, and those should be doubled during the crisis and stressful conditions. The goal of the therapy is to replace the body requirement under normal conditions and during the stress, and to suppress the ACTH secretion, which drives the adrenal gland to overproduce adrenal androgens in the realizing forms of congenital adrenal hyperplasia. So, Waterhouse-Friderichsen syndrome, we will talk about this syndrome in the next lecture inshallah, after Eid. So up till now, your time is going to be over. Please ask me question. Do you have any questions? This is a bit lengthy topic and difficult too, but this is not so difficult if you understand the cyclical changes, and you go via the enzymes which are involved in their production. This will become very easy. Any question, class? Boys and girls, please ask me question if you have any. Any question, class? Although the time is over, but you can ask me question. We are still on. It means we have understood. Have you got my a clear understanding about the Cushing syndrome, Addison's disease, and congenital adrenal hyperplasia? Have you got an understanding? Good understanding or not? Any question? Boys, any question? I'll take your clinical chemistry lectures after Eid, inshallah. Few things are left with this chapter. So after talking about the Waterhouse-Friderichsen syndrome, we will go to the clinical chemistry test, because there are certain changes by the admin in your test schedule. So your grand test will be on 16 June and 30 June, and there are two parts of your test. So first part is of clinical chemistry. So after Eid, inshallah, we will go through the clinical chemistry test, which are also very important and interesting. So any other thing, please ask me. Boys, are you clear with the topic? Rest of the class. In Zamamullah, are you clear with the topic? Okay, class. Advance Eid Mubarak. Stay blessed, and see you after Eid. Allah Hafiz. म्यूट कर दें जी।